Hi, my name's Kat, and in this video, Reddit has been asked, people of Reddit who used to be Jehovah's Witnesses, what made you leave your congregation? Also, what happened when you left? You asked, so 27 years ago, my 3.5-year-old daughter was hit by a car and killed in front of our house. I was at work at the time and couldn't figure out why she was in the road. Hubby was mowing the lawn and thought she was napping. Turns out she was pushing a plastic doll cart I'd bought her the week before. In the cart, a pair of gloves and 2 Bibles, that's all. The only thing I could figure was when she was out of service. If you're asking this question, you know what I mean. That was it, done, check please. It was as if the big nonsense detector went off. For all of my adult life, I had heard folks talk about how the overseer had come to town and they didn't have food for him, and poof, a dump cake showed up. Or, the overseers had no shoes, and poof, some showed up at the door. Guess what? If God, Jesus, Jehovah, Thor can conjure up a fudging dump cake, he could just put some pepper in the shoes of a 3-year-old pushing Bibles around. She almost made it across the road. I washed her blood off from the white line myself. After? Oh, about 10 years of horrible dreams of people walking away from me without speaking. Lots of booze, ex-husbands committed, divorce, therapy, new husbands. The best was the elders showing up at my door a decade later and apologising to me for disfellowshipping me 8 days after she died, for drinking too much at her wake. Yeah, that Jesus dude would so leave me with no one to talk to a week after their kid died. Folks I had known for 15 years would meet me on the street and just walk away. Good times. For me, it was the fact that you're not allowed to ask any questions about their teachings without being immediately considered an apostate. Also, the repeated false prophecies about Armageddon and the constant new light, the excuse they use to change their doctrines, made me question my beliefs. What happened after? I'm a free human being now. Started going to college and now have a good job. Unfortunately, my wife is still a Jehovah's Witness and trying to realise that she is in a cult. They say that you're allowed to ask questions and everything, but it's very superficial. Once you start asking harder questions about the doctrines, they start looking at you different, questioning your sanity and probably start avoiding you. And if your question about a certain doctrine turns into a disagreement, then you'll be expelled. So while they say you're allowed to question things, you're really not. You can question, but you can't doubt. I agree with you 100%. I started asking questions during my Bible study about why married Jehovah's Witnesses wear wedding rings if its origins are pagan. The following week, they were already labelling me as an apostate. Luckily, I never baptized, so having read the Secret Elders book, I decided to meet with 2 elders and resign by my own choice from being an unbaptized publisher. I'm still getting shunned by everyone in the congregation except my wife. You can ask questions, but never question their answers. I started having questions about Noah's flood, so I looked up all the answers that they had published, but I still had questions. So I then read letters that they had sent to another guy in an attempt to answer similar questions. Then I started looking into other things I've been lied to. I haven't left, I'm trapped in, and if I leave the cult, they'll destroy my life. It would end my marriage, and I may lose my home. First, I left because of everything I couldn't do. Parties, going out, dating, none of that was possible as a Jehovah's Witness. Not normal ones anyway. But after being away for a few months, I've read all about the lies that they've been telling me, and that was what made me realise the harm that they do. I left simply because I no longer knew that they had the truth. There were so many changes in the doctrines that were painted as new light, that so many lapped up but I just stopped buying. The main was the generation teaching. I'm only 30 and it has gone through 4 permutations since I've been alive. I started to doubt everything we believed, simply because it was so easy for them to change it. If you didn't keep up, you would be branded as a troublemaker or possibly an apostate for not moving with Jehovah's chariot. I started to research the origin of much of what we believe to be true, including the origins of Yahweh, and decided that worshipping God is no different to pagans worshipping the sun. In short, I stopped seeing them as God's chosen religion, and started to see them as just another religion. My wife and I left together 3 years ago and couldn't be happier. We are agnostic, my wife, an atheist, me, and have no interest in ever being part of any other religion. We left just 4 months ago. We were both raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, and like you guys, we've never been happier. It is amazing, and we have been married 42 years. That is a long time in. What was the turning point? You both left together? That's amazing. The turning point was the overlap in generations. I did not buy that at all, but tried to put it to the back of my mind. Then they came out with the types and antitypes changes, and I thought more about it and realised that I've never really bought into a lot of their explanations anyway. Members on Jehovah's Witnesses in broadcasting. Stephen let asking for money and lying about the reasons for the shortfall. That was the final straw for me. My wife was slightly behind me, but each time I found out something new and shared it with her, she would say, yeah, I was never really happy about that either. We are so much happier, it is amazing. Too long in for us to feel totally happy with ourselves. We feel stupid, but better late than never, as they say. Reasons were the same as others. Doubts about doctrine. Principally the morality of the Bible. God sure does have a penchant for slaughtering innocent children. That caused me to listen to what was being taught at the meetings with an outsider's perspective, and everything fell apart. For leaving, I lost almost every friend I ever had, not allowed to have non-witness friends, and witnesses aren't inclined to associate with me now. And most of my family. My relationship with my remaining friends is strenuous, but I'm working to fix it. Despite all that, it's the best decision I've made. I have freedom now, which is inexplicably awesome. I can think what I want to think, because I believe it to be true, not because some dudes in New York tell me I have to. I give cults a 0 out of 10. Don't recommend. I was born in, baptised at 18 and walked away from it all, getting disfellowshipped as an afterthought when I was 21. I honestly attribute it all to the growth of the frontal lobe of my brain. I'd never really felt anything for it, but I went along because I thought I could make my mother happy by being a good Jehovah's Witness. As I matured and started thinking more critically, I realised that I really didn't believe in it. I didn't believe in God, and I had nothing resembling faith. It seemed like a whole belief system designed to control people, and it was doing a lot more harm than good. As far as a specific revelation that triggered it, I'd say it was because I had taught that a Jehovah was a loving, B, all-powerful, and C, all-knowing. Looking around the world and reading stories of people, children starving, being murdered, raped, trafficked, dying of horrible diseases, etc., it was impossible to reconcile the reality with the teaching. If Jehovah was loving, he'd stop all of that, unless he wasn't powerful enough. If Jehovah was all-knowing, he could have kept it from happening in the first place, unless he cared more about his reputation and winning this alleged bet with Satan. If he was all-powerful, he could destroy Satan immediately and set everything back to the right, unless he didn't love people enough to do that. He simply could not be all three of those things, and if he was only one or two of them, he certainly wasn't worthy of worship. I left because I was tired of being controlled by a group of misogynists. I wanted to go to college, which is heavily discouraged by Jehovah's Witnesses, especially for women. It wasn't until 15-20 years later that I started researching and realised everything I'd been taught was all lies and manipulations. I also realised it was the root of my struggle with my anxiety and misery. Now, college educated, great career, happy as I've ever been in my life. My family shuns me, my parents and most of my siblings and their families. I'm good with it now. I'm still physically active, despite being mentally out. It's part of the Jehovah's Witness cult that once you're baptised, you cannot leave the religion. Your believing family will shun you if you do. And I have quite a lot of responsibilities in my local congregation. The love for my family forces me to keep the facade of believing in this organisation, and keeps me trapped despite not believing in their teachings. I made the mistake of getting baptised at a very early age, before my teens. I guess I was never fully convinced it was the truth, and as I grew up, I confirmed this realisation even more. In a nutshell, what has woken me up is this. Their usual family is ransom to keep you in. If you disagree with any of the Watchtower divine straight from the God teachings, you'll be expelled from the congregation. Your family must show loyalty to God by not looking for any excuses to contact you, not even by email. That's a direct quote from one of the recent Watchtower magazines. They speak of a God that does not want you to serve him by obligation, but by love and faith. Yet if you ever really wanted to leave the organisation, your family will shun you and never speak to you again until you come back to the cult. Or, if you actually believe in what they teach, you'll die in Armageddon without any hope of being resurrected in the coming new world. Their teachings contradict each other. I know this is a matter of personal opinion, but I do not believe that the biblical evidence of our past fits into history. Jehovah's Witnesses believe humans are imperfect, which is why we die, get sick, and suffer. This does not fit the description of loving God who has obliterated and committed genocide, even of innocent children, several times. Jehovah's Witnesses change their teachings when something does not go right. Based on the light gets brighter metaphor in Proverbs 4:18, the Watchtower manipulates its teachings despite contradicting what it has said before. This is referred as new light, and is meant to say God has illuminated the minds of the governing body, the leaders of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and certain scripture has changed. God seems to be pretty bipolar in some cases. The Watchtower fits all characteristics of a cult. I cannot emphasize how this is. The Watchtower fits all characteristics of a cult. I cannot emphasize how true this is. If you watch this video on YouTube, the Watchtower and the Jehovah's Witness religion fits every single one of these requirements. There is no doubt in my mind that I'm part of a cult. Lastly, the growing child abuse cases and the cover-up by the Watchtower is solid evidence that it is not God's chosen organisation on earth. They rather let their followers suffer and be abused, not even allowing them to contact local authorities, because it would give Jehovah's organisation a bad name. That is not justice, and certainly not something that would be content with. These are, of course, just my main reasons. The list goes on, and as I'm an active member, but mentally out, I realise how bad this organisation is for people that just don't know any better. This video is sponsored by me. Sweet Mouthful Mixes brings pick and mix sweets straight to your door. Choose up to 10 scoops of your favourite sweets, or pick a pre-packed bag. Sweet Mouthful Mixes has a 5-star hygiene rating, and full PPE is worn whilst making the bags. With over 50 sweets to choose from, you're guaranteed to find something you like. Treat yourself, you've earned it. Get 20% off with code REDDIT.